In the evening, in the club room, Issei and Asia report to Rias about the distribution of flyers. The president points out to them that now this work will be done for them by their familiars, whom they need to acquire. Rias shows her familiar, which Issei immediately recognizes as the girl who gave him the flyer before his date with Reynal. Akino and Kaneko also demonstrate their familiars, which Yuto also wanted to do until Issei expressed complete indifference to this. Asia asks Rias where she can get them, but she doesn't have time to answer as Student Council President Sona and the rest of the Student Council enter the club room. Akino explains to a surprised Issei that the Student Council is Sona Citri's clan. The latter compliments Akino's words with the phrase that they do not interfere in the affairs of other clans and try not to attract unnecessary attention to themselves. She also introduces Issei to her pawn Jinshiro Saji. Jinshiro boasts to Issei that he has the strength of 4 pawns, but then he is struck by Sona's words that there are 8 of them in Issei. He greets Asia, but Issei interrupts and presses too hard with his hand when shaking hands, returning to the topic of familiars, which, as it turns out, can only be obtained once a month. Rias and Sona decide to have a friendly duel for the opportunity to be the first to receive a familiar. Having agreed to fight through sports, Rias and Akino begin a badminton match against Sona and her queen Tsubaki. The badminton court is surrounded by many academy students, among whom Issei and his friends watch the figures of the most beautiful Kuo girls in sports uniforms. Over time, each side begins to use demonic power, which leads to a draw due to destroyed inventory. After discussing the game, Rias and Akino inform the rest of the club members about the upcoming dodgeball game. Already at night at home, Issei knocks on Asia's room and asks her if she has a needle and thread. Later, the Gremory clan members are warming up in the gym, during which Issei is again hit by Kaneko for having dirty thoughts about Asia and Akino. Before the match, the guy gives his friends headbands with their team name on them, which explains his late-night search for a needle and thread. All club members present react positively to this. Sona enters the hall with her clan to begin the game. The game of dodgeball goes just fine for Issei, as the beautiful girls on both teams strike different poses and lose their clothes due to the destructiveness of the demonic power used. However, Issei's satisfied face does not remain that way for long due to a quick ball hit to the groin, which Asia then heals with her sacred artifact. Rias begins a heroic speech about how Issei's death was not in vain to encourage the players to win. After a certain time, the game ends and Rias' team successfully celebrates their victory. Sona says goodbye to her, giving her the opportunity to be the first to receive a familiar. Finally, she says that she would not have lost if it was a rating game. Rias replies that she wouldn't lose either. Everyone thanks Issei for the bandages and moral support. Immediately after the holiday, on the full moon, the demons go to the Forest of Familiars. There, the Gremory clan comes across familiar master Satoji, who offers his help. At first, Issei is offered to take on an Undine as his familiar, but she looks like a bodybuilder, which scares him. They move on. The demons then stumble upon a sprite baby dragon and are immediately attacked by a slime familiar. This familiar begins to eat away the clothes of all the girls present, which makes Issei cry with happiness. The mucus neutralizes the powers of all demons, but they still manage to get out of its bonds. The naked girls begin to destroy the slime, despite the protests of Issei, who wants to make it his familiar. The sprite dragon burns off the remaining mucus and sits on Asia's shoulder, which is why she also chooses him. The girl performs the contract ceremony, and Issei mourns the destroyed slime. The demons leave the forest and return to the club room, where they positively discuss what happened. Issei finds himself in an unusual organ hall, dressed up in a suit and surrounded by his loved ones. He stands next to Rias in her wedding dress. The priest allows him, the groom, to kiss the bride, whereupon Rias reaches out with her lips towards the dumbfounded Issei. Suddenly everything is interrupted by a voice that Issei has heard somewhere before. The whole picture changes and a dragon appears in front of Issei, saying that he has always tried to contact him, but his voice never reached Issei. When asked by the guy who he is, a dragon glove appears on Issei's left hand. At that moment, Issei wakes up. A sleep-deprived Issei brags to his friends in his academy class that Asia often wakes him up in the morning, cooks for him, and cleans the house. Matsuda and Matahama, annoyed by their friend's jealousy, ask Issei to introduce them to a girl. He gives them the number of a man dressed as a girl wizard, Miltan. For fun, grateful for the number, Issei's horny friends take him to one of the girls' locker rooms at the academy. where they hide in one of the lockers for another peeping session. During the whole process, Kaneko, who is changing clothes, catches his eye. Having already finished changing, she notices the stairs and approaches the locker with the naughty students. A couple of lucky punches on the locker door knock her off balance. Matsuda and Motohama are knocked unconscious, after which Kaneko brutally beats Issei. Covered in bruises from the blows, Issei is in the club room healing with Asia's sacred artifact while Rias tells him that Kaneko's behavior is justified. Asia reacts unconventionally and suggests to Issei that if he needs it so badly, he should look at her own nudity. The guy is extremely embarrassed by this statement, as well as by the president's statement that she is used to showing herself naked in front of her servant. Asia reacts to Ria's suggestion jealously. That and the latter smiles. A little later, when most of the demons have left the building, Aquino tells Rias that although Issei hasn't signed any contracts on his own yet, he's having an extremely positive effect on the team. Everyone, including the clients, is happy to spend time with him. Rias is alarmed by the fact that Issei feels weak and useless among the clansmen, to which Aquino remarks that she has grown attached to him. After the dialogue, Rias is left alone in the room with her thoughts, which are interrupted by a magic circle that suddenly appears nearby. In the evening, Issei decides to take a shower at home, but when he enters the stall naked, Asia, who is already washing, catches his eye. Uncomfortable, Issei tries to leave the stall, but the girl prevents him from doing so by taking his hand. Embarrassed, Asia suggests that Issei bathe together. Due to a misunderstanding of some Japanese traditions, she thought it would strengthen the bonds of friendship. Immediately after the offer, Asia slams her breasts into Issei's back, who barely restrains himself and refuses her. This scene is partially noticed by Issei's mother, who is passing by, which does not please the latter. Issei, while praying after the incident and convincing himself that he is not a lecher, still has lustful thoughts of Issei in his head. The prayer gives him a headache since he is a demon. His unsuccessful attempts to distract himself are interrupted by a suddenly teleported Rias, who without further ado asks him to take away her innocence and make love to her. Issei, dumbfounded by the surprise, watches as she removes her clothes and hears her say, "It's the only way." Once they find out about it, there's nothing they can do. Remaining in shock, Issei finds himself rolled by the president on the bed, and later on under it. The guy's procrastination and passivity prevent Rias from carrying out her plan. As a magic circle appears, from which a woman unknown to Issei emerges, she informs him that a certain Seizex will be arriving soon. Saddened by the failure, Rias informs Issei that he is her brother and that the arriving girl is his first, who introduces herself as Grafia. Rias asks Issei, who has already recovered, to forget about the incident, apologizes to him and kisses him on the cheek before leaving with Grafia. The next morning, Issei, reflecting on what happened, runs into his angry school friends, who have managed to meet a man in a girl wizard costume and his friends on a tip from the protagonist. After class, Issei, Asia, and Yuto head to the club room for a clan gathering. At the venue, the clan demons Rias and Grafia greet the walk-ups. Immediately after the greeting, a narcissistic and pathos demon teleports into the room. Grafia introduces the demon to Issei as Razor Phoenix, heir to the Phoenix clan and future consort to the heiress of the Grumry clan. Rias, while drinking a mug of tea next to a disgruntled Rias, Razor plays with her hair, much to Issei's displeasure. After a few seconds of patience, Rias leaves the embrace of her unpleasant soulmate, informing him that she will not marry him. In response, Razor says that it is not her decision to make, but her parents and older brother. The heir to the Phoenix clan also explains to Rias that the past Great War of the three great factions has claimed the lives of many pureblood demons, making marriages between pureblood demons even more valuable. The conflict of interest that was about to escalate into an open confrontation is resolved by Grafia, who orders the high-class demons present to calm down. She adds that her master had foreseen such a problem, who suggested to resolve everything with a ranking game. Issei, who has been observing all this, here's an explanation from Yuto that this game is a battle between demons and teams with their servants. Razor brags to the entire Rias clan present about his experience and unbroken winning streak, and points out to Rias her small number of pieces. He then summons a full set of his of the Grumry clan are amazed by the capabilities of Issei's powers and begin to believe in their victory. In his room, an hour before the start of the game, Issei gathers his courage to give it his all. Asia, dressed as a nun, comes to him and asks him to always be by his side, to which Issei agrees. The time is approaching and all the demons are finishing their preparations in the clubroom. Sona and Tsubaki come to them, explaining that they volunteered as observers. Grafia also moves towards them, warning them of imminent teleportation to the arena. Sona and Tsubaki go to the observation room. Grafia informs Rias that the battle will also be personally observed by the demon lord Lucifer. Issei, from the words of those around him, realizes that Rias Gremry's brother is a demon lord who has taken the place of Lucifer, who died in the war. A teleportation circle appears and all the demons appear in the same room. Over the loudspeaker, Grafia, as the referee, explains that Rias's first match will be held in a replica of Kuo Academy's grounds, also revealing where each team's bases are located. Before the battle, the Gremry clan takes transmitters for communication, after which they hear an announcement about the start of the game. Looking at the map of the academy, Rias and her servants plan a strategy for moving and attacking. Rias sends Kaneko and Yudo to set traps in the forest, and Akino to stage a pseudo-attack after setting the traps. The president, remaining with Issei and Asia, asks the former to lay his head on her lap. From overwhelming feelings, the guy begins to shed streams of tears, and Rias removes one of the so-called seals placed on Issei. Issei feels a surge of strength, and Rias sheds light on the circumstances of the need to seal the powers of her servant. According to his mistress, Issei understands that the power of all 8 pawns was sealed within him, since otherwise he simply would not have been able to control it. He needs training to improve his control skills and retain such significant power within himself. Akino tells Rias that preparations are complete, to which she, with an inspiring speech, sends Issei and Kaneko towards the gym, remaining at the base with Asia. Upon arriving at the hall, Kaneko and Issei come across Riser's 3 pawns and rook. This leads them to an open confrontation, where Issei takes on the pawns Il, Nil, Mira. Kaneko is fighting a more or less equal battle with Rook Sulin, and Issei is dodging the constant attacks of his enemies. The guy, suddenly confident in his superiority, touches the pawns with his hand, leaving small seals on them. Then Issei snaps his fingers and the seals on the clothes simply tear them to the ground in an instant. As a result, Riser's embarrassed and exposed pawns are unable to continue the battle. Satisfied with himself, Issei, receiving insults from naked demonesses, remembers secret training with Asia, thanks to which he developed this technique. During training, Issei, with demonic power, supported by his vulgar imagination, tore Asia's clothes, each time achieving better results. Kaneko, meanwhile, leaves the enemy rook lying around exhausted. Only Issei and Kaneko, on the orders of Rias, leave the gym, when Akino appears with a lightning strike and turns the building into a pile of rubble. At the same time, Rias continues to give orders to her servants while at the base with Asia, while Yudo takes on the 3 pawns in the forest. Suddenly, Kaneko is hit by a strong explosion, knocking Issei back and leaving the naked girl lying there, exhausted. The cause of the explosion turns out to be the arrival of Riser Phoenix's queen Yubilun. Exhausted, Kaneko drops out of the game, and Issei begins to provoke Yubiluna into a fight. Rias calms him down, explaining that those who are eliminated from the game are teleported to another location. Akino takes on the enemy queen, and Issei meets Yudo, who without much difficulty defeated the 3 previously encountered pawns. Morally supporting each other, they receive an order from Rias, according to which they must distract attention while the president herself and Asia make their way to the enemy's rear. Issei and Yudo begin to implement the plan, bumping into Riser's horse, Carlamine, which the second takes over. Issei is surrounded by 6 demons of the Phoenix clan, dodging Isabella's rook attacks with varying success. Issei accumulates some of the power in the glove, which may well be enough for several enemy pawns. At the same time, Rias and Asia penetrate the base of Riser, who is already waiting for them there. At this moment, Yudo materializes an ice sword, which neutralizes the fire sword of the enemy horse. Carlamine begins to believe that the guy has several sacred artifacts, but Yudo explains to her that he only owns the sacred artifact Birth of Swords, which allows him to create any demonic sword at will. Issei continues the battle with the enemy rook, missing with the accumulated force. However, this fact does not particularly upset him, since immediately touching the enemy, Issei exposes him with the previously shown technique. Isabella, taken aback by what is happening, cannot dodge the next blast of energy, thanks to which Issei easily takes her out of the game. Immediately after a small celebration in his head, Issei notices Rias and Asia on the roof of one of the buildings with the rest of the demons present. The president and his elephant engage in battle with Riser while Issei distracts the attention of the four figures attacking him. Rhea supports Issei and orders him to fight for her. Issei heeds the words of his mistress, repels the attacks of enemy figures and activates the enhancement of his sacred artifact, which again transforms in appearance. Not far from the battle site, Akino almost defeats the enemy queen, but a strange bottle is discovered in her pocket, which she uses. Realizing a new power, namely the transfer of the power of his enhancing artifact, Issei asks Yuto to transfer his ability to create swords to him. Having received the necessary and repeatedly strengthened this ability, Issei, in a huge radius around himself, causes many swords to burst out of the ground, which pierce all enemy figures nearby. The joy of a close victory is interrupted by Akino's defeat from the enemy queen, which immediately takes Yuto out of the game. Rias, leading a duel with Riser, demands that Issei continue the battle and believe in victory. Issei learns that the enemy queen was helped by a bottle of phoenix tears. Deciding to help Rias, he goes to her in enemy territory and is promoted to queen. The president, meanwhile, although he manages to wound Riser with his attacks, he makes her successes meaningless, immediately restoring the injured parts of his body. Yubaluna attacks Asia, but Issei covers it with his back in time without much damage to himself. Frightened, Asia still loses consciousness. Issei promises Rias not to give up and, using the enhancing artifact, is going to attack Riser. However, unable to cope with the force, Issei stumbles and almost falls from the roof. Sona, observing all this, explains to Tsubaki that constant use of the enhancement takes away part of the stamina of Issei's powers, weakening him. Lying and spitting blood, the owner of the enhancing artifact encourages Rias to continue the fight and believe in herself, which infuriates Riser. The heir of the Phoenix clan approaches Issei and begins to actively beat him. Rias asks Pawn to stop fighting, but he continues to stand on his feet, explaining that he wants to see his president smile. An angry Riser is going to literally incinerate Issei so that he will finally die, and not only in the game. A second before the fatal blow, Rias saves the guy by jumping on Riser and admitting her defeat to him. Grafia announces Riser as the winner throughout the arena. Issei, still conscious, cannot believe what is happening. Issei talks to a dragon in his sleep, who warns its owner that the owner of the white dragon will soon come for him. The guy is destined to fight. Drake also tells Issei that he can give him considerable strength at the right time. Issei wakes up with the realization of what happened in Grafia nearby. She explains to the restless demon that Rhea surrendered in order to save his life. He remembers her tears and words of gratitude for the strength she put into the battle. Surzek's queen also adds that Rias, with everyone except Asia, went to the underworld for an engagement with Riser. Dissatisfied with his strength, Issei does not accept what is happening. Grafia expresses her respect to him, as well as the respect of her master, and gives Issei a teleportation seal, which will transport him to the banquet if desired. Grafia also relays Surzek's words, "If you want my sister back, make an effort." After all that has been said, the maid leaves the guy's room. Following Grafia's departure, Asia enters the room and hugs Issei with tears in her eyes. He tells her of his intentions to rescue Rias before the betrothal. Issei also asks Asia for some help, and later decides to make a deal with Drake in his sacred artifact. Meanwhile, in the underworld, Rias tries on a wedding dress until she is distracted by Riser, gloating and pleased with his victory. She remembers how, after her announcement of admitting defeat, she rushed to help Issei with tears in her eyes. Rias walks out into the ceremony hall, where all the previously visible demons have gathered, including a pleased Riser. The latter's pompous speech is interrupted by the appearance of Issei, who promises to take the effectiveness of his mistress for himself. While Riser begins to lose his temper, Surzek's Lucifer himself enters the hall behind Issei with his queen. He asks Issei to fight Riser, to which he responds positively, asking for the victory to return Rias Gremory back free. The heir of the Phoenix clan and the owner of Drake meet in the arena. Issei asks for only 10 seconds to win, and with the help of his sacred artifact activates Balance Breaker, enhancing artifact scale armor. After donning the armor, Issei remembers how he gained this power. The guy gave up his hand in 10 seconds of Balance Breaker, concluding a contract with Drake. Riser fights on equal terms with the pawn of the Gremory clan. One of Issei's blows causes terrible pain to Riser, which is due to the presence of the first Holy Cross in his hand. Weakened by pain, Riser realizes that Issei gave up his hand to gain such power. The guy is about to deliver the final blow. but the regime's time is running out, and the dragon armor dissipates. Riser takes Issei by the throat, about to finish him off, when he suddenly takes out a bottle of holy water and pours it on the smug demon's face. Experiencing terrible pain, Riser loses the ability to recover. Taking advantage of this, Issei, with a cross in his hand, deals a crushing blow to his opponent. Surzex, who watched this with interest, recognizes Issei as the winner. All the remaining demons of the Gremory clan praise him and hand him over to Rias. The mistress hugs her servant, constantly thanking him for his courage and work done. On the porch of the palace, Issei summons the griffin of the back of the leaf that Grafia gave, and takes off on it with Rias under the night sky of the underworld. Already on the griffin, Rias expresses gratitude and pride for her servant, after which she kisses him. Shocked, Issei hears that the president gave him her first kiss. Rias also says that she will temporarily live with him. Later, in the club room, Rias and Aquino, with the help of demonic power, are working on returning Issei's hand from a dragon state to a normal one. School daily life continues as usual. Issei looks at Rias from the same place as when they first met, and talks about how he wants to protect her and be close to her. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, put a like and subscribe to my channel. It will motivate me to make new videos. Until new retellings.